Our topic today is F1 the movie. I'd say it's really a sports movie. And you don't have to be a sports fan to enjoy a sports movie.
I enjoy racing.
Well, it's a noise that puts hair on your chest. So
It does. Yeah, that's where I'm wearing a shirt. Sorry.
Hello, and welcome to the Pop Culture Contrarian podcast with Thomas, Sterling, and Andrew.
Hello.
Hey, guys.
Our topic today is F1 the movie. We're excited to talk about that. But first, make sure to go to patriotpostshop.com and pick up your Trump fight shirt. We are coming up on July 13th, which will be the 1-year anniversary of Donald Trump standing up from getting shot in the head and saying, fight, fight, fight. So go pick up your shirt. It's a historical event, and it probably saved our country. So go do that. And remember, that's the second best way you can support us. The best way you can support us is going to patriotpost.us and subscribing to our free daily newsletter. All you got to do is give us your email address. It's right. It's free. Go do that. And let's get started. All right, guys. F1 the movie. Thomas, I think this was your idea to watch this one.
Yeah.
So you started off. Tell us about this movie.
Thomas, start your
Engines. I enjoy racing in general. And F1, I've really gotten into the Netflix series Formula One Drive to Survive. I think they're in their 7th season.
And that is just actual races, right?
Yeah, it's kind of like a docuseries on each season of F1.
Okay.
And you get to know the racers and the teams and a lot of the behind-the-scenes drama. And so I've enjoyed that show immensely. And when this, I enjoy Brad Pitt as an actor. He's a good actor. Mm-hmm. And so when this was advertised, I thought, hey, this is going to be a fun movie.
Yep.
And I wasn't disappointed.
No, I wasn't disappointed either.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm a big IndyCar fan. And so this is kind of a natural movie to see as well as an IndyCar fan. I've hardly watched any F1. I've hardly watched any NASCAR. But, like Thomas, I am a race fan in my own right. So I was excited to see it as well.
Mm-hmm. I'm too much of a bog standard nerd to have watched all these races, but I did know a little bit about F1 before the movie, but it was extremely fun. It's I'd say it's really a sports movie. And you don't have to be a sports fan to enjoy a sports movie. That's kind of the nice thing about sports movies is they cut out the boring bit.
Yeah, generally. It's the very, very tried and true classic sports genre kind of thematically done movie. I mean,
it's the standard sports movie plot.
It is. Yeah. You got your old washed up who's still dreaming of his glory days and has one more chance.
Yeah. Although, he's not actually washed up. The beginning, like the first thing we see, so Brad Pitt's character is Sonny Hayes.
Yeah.
And the first thing we see him do is win at Daytona.
Yeah, it's the 24-hour of Daytona, similar to like 24-hour of Le Mans in France, or one of those endurance type races.
Yeah.
And it's an awesome beginning.
Oh, it's great.
Anytime you start out a movie with race cars and Brad Pitt and like classic rock and roll music just screaming.
Mm-hmm. No, it was Led Zeppelin.
It was Led Zeppelin, yeah.
Well, see, I didn't even notice the music because I was so busy because, of course, I assume this is a big part of the attraction to actually going to these races is the car sounds.
Oh, my
gosh, the car
gosh,
sounds
yes.
are so cool.
Yes.
Races attract the largest crowds, I believe, of any sport.
Oh, okay. I had no idea.
Yeah, I was at the 100th running of the Indy 500, 2016, I think it was. They call that the greatest spectacle in racing, and it really is. If you can imagine 80,000 plus people were there.
Probably more than that.
It's absolute electricity in the stands, especially at the very beginning, because you have like military aircraft flying over. They've got like a massive football field size American flag being pulled at like 80 miles an hour by a Chevy 2500. Just flying down the track to start it. And then, of course, they start the engines and just the thunderous noise of raw unleashed horsepower at the very beginning is it is electricity. So Sterling, yes, you were right. This is a huge appeal to people, especially race fans who go to these events, is the feeling of just how awesome and powerful. My father-in-law and I call it worshiping at the altar of speed.
I think that's probably the realm of Hephaestus, if it's going to be a Greek god, you know?
Yeah, sure.
I think the movie captures the sound well because, like, the initial scene, you see Brad Pitt walking. The race has already begun. He's walking up to take his place in the driver's seat, I guess. And they really sell that you can't hear anything. People are having to shout from 2 feet away, and the noise is, it's very, it's good noise. It's good noise. I would, I don't have anything against racing. I'd love to go to a race. I just haven't.
And I have to make that change, Sterling.
Yep. Well, it's a noise that puts hair on your chest. So
it does. Yeah, that's where I'm wearing a shirt. Sorry.
Yeah, not to give a blow-by-blow of the whole movie, but an interesting theme is he wins at Daytona, and the, I guess, leader of the team, I don't know the names of titles. I don't know if it's coach or something like that. But he comes and he's like, hey, Sonny, I want you on the team for next year as well.
He's the team owner.
Team owner. Okay. Sonny's like, nah, I'm not into that. I've done it. I won. I'm going to go away and go do some other race. And he starts looking in the paper to find the next race he's going to go compete in. And that's kind of a theme is he's not about, racking up the most titles. He's about doing something he hasn't done before in a car as fast as he can.
Yeah. He is all about racing and just the act of racing and competing. And interestingly enough, another theme that he has in his entirety, both in personal life and in racing, is losing.
Yeah.
Because he's a gambling addict who loses a lot. And he's also lost a lot of races. He's won some too, of course. He won Daytona, but he's not by any means like a net winner.
Yeah, I think that's certainly true.
He's an amazing talent who never really fully was realized.
Correct.
Because of the demons that are chasing him, or he's chasing, or however you want to put that, he's kind of just embraced this nomadic racer lifestyle.
Yeah.
He goes from race to race. He never wants to commit to anything.
A very awesome 4x4 van that he built.
Right. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like the other thing is, you mentioned he's a gambling addict. They say professional gambler, I think, is the usual line.
Trust me, I know what I'm doing.
Clearly, like, money doesn't mean much to him because he's offered, he gets his check for winning Daytona, and then he's offered another Rolex, and he's like, I've already got one. I don't need another. Yeah. It's like, okay, clearly money is not what this guy's after either.
Yeah, he's an adrenaline junkie, you could say. But he's aging, and if we're going to go by Brad Pitt's actual age, which is 61 right now. I don't know when this was filmed. Let's say he's 60 when this was filmed. He's pretty old for being tooling around in a car, going several hundred miles an hour to near 200 miles an hour. So
yeah. I don't know how old drivers get in NASCAR, but we looked up for F1, and I think the oldest current F1 driver was born in 1981. So that's like 44 years old. It's a far cry from Brad Pitt or Sonny Hayes's, late 50s, early 60s.
Yeah. I think we can kind of ascertain what his age is, Sonny Hayes, the character, by way of his 1993 fictional crash at the Grand Prix of Spain. We're told he's maybe 19 or 20 years old or something at that time. So maybe that gives us a glimpse into how old the Sonny Hayes is.
Yeah, he's in his 50s at absolute youngest. He can't be younger than that. Yeah. So, he would absolutely be the oldest F1 driver. That was interesting to me. I was curious because watching the movie, as the amateur, I don't know anything about F1 except I know Max Verstappen wins every race recently. That's the only thing I knew about F1 going into this. Sonny Hayes would absolutely have been the oldest F1 driver, but they just don't make a thing of it, which is fine. You don't actually have to. I think it's not a tough sell for me to believe that Brad Pitt can do anything really.
Yeah. I mean, there is a thing in the sense that he is the old timer, and there's questions as to can he still do it.
Right, but it's not about like you're too old. It's about like you're out of practice and stuff.
Yeah, maybe that's fair. I guess. I mean, obviously Brad Pitt's kept himself in good shape.
Right. So the hook of the movie is when Javier Bardem, who plays Brad Pitt's friend, Ruben Cervantes.
And that's he's well known for his role in No Country for Old Men.
And he's been in lots of stuff. He's a great actor. He shows up and he's wearing a very nice suit. The scene immediately makes it clear these are old friends. And Ruben says, Sonny, I need a driver for my F1 team. We haven't, won anything. We haven't even placed in the top 10 of any race in the first half of the season, which is, abysmal. And he's like, I need a ringer, basically. He's hard selling Sonny on showing up and racing F1 again after, 30-something years. You're not sure if Brad Pitt's going to do it.
And what's funny is, so the racing team is Expensify, which in reality is like an accounting fiscal company.
But they don't call it Expensify.
No.
They call it Apex.
Yeah, no, but it's owned by Expensify.
Right.
And they'd mentioned that throughout the film.
Right. And it's very clear.
And so I found that kind of a funny little nugget. This is like a huge amount of money going into this that's not really getting a return. And now they're betting on the habitual gambler.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's an interesting irony. Yeah.
To bring it out. And it's like this fiscal responsibility, tracking money kind of a company. And
that's where the board member plays big into that.
Sure.
Yeah. But just to play into that irony, of course, in the movie, Ruben's down $350 million on the team.
Yeah.
But and Expensify is sponsoring it. But in real life, Expensify is a real company, right?
Correct.
And they have product placement in just about every scene in the entire movie. So in real life, it's a great decision from them.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Well, this movie's got product placement everywhere. From every F1 team current.
Yeah.
Right. Which makes sense.
Yeah. And there's tons of, I guess you would say, Easter eggs, but they're not even real Easter eggs. They're just shout outs to every single team practically and currently in F1 and a myriad of the current drivers.
Yeah.
Everybody except for, that I could tell, Apex GP, which is a fictional team.
Yeah.
Every driver is a legit real F1 driver that was shown.
Yeah.
So that makes it feel very much connected to F1. A number of the principals and CEOs that are shown from the different teams are their actual, the real ones.
Yeah.
From watching the show, the Netflix show, that is just like exactly how he is throughout the show.
In real life.
In real life. So it's kind of fun seeing elements like that in this movie. It just makes the movie more tangible in a way if you're a fan of F1 and know these people.
And maybe this could offer a boost to the sport.
Oh, I'm sure. In the U.S. especially.
Well, they're even. I was reading some of the press they did, and they were talking about this as the inaugural F1 Hollywood movie. They were clearly in their minds they're launching the brand into Hollywood here, and that's what this is about. It's not a one and done.
Hence the name.
You're
F1 the movie.
Well, and so educate me on this, guys, since I don't follow racing at all. Is F1 significant in the U.S.? Obviously, one of the races is in Las Vegas in the movie, but is it I feel like Indy and NASCAR are both going to be bigger to Americans than F1.
I think so.
Yeah,
definitely.
I think for the world, F1 is the race, automobile race competition, bar none. But I think in the U.S., it's always kind of been secondary because of NASCAR #1 and then IndyCar.
Yeah, and IndyCar, frankly, has the longest legacy. And they go back to, I can't remember when the exact, I think it's 1918 or something. Okay. I'd have to verify the exact first race. Maybe you can check it out, Sterling, at the Brickyard. No, it would be 1916, I think. Or no, 1911, because there were a few years they took off during the war. That's why.
Okay.
There's not as many, because the 100th was...
So the 1911 was the first Indy 500. Is that the first race? Okay.
Well, I don't know if it was the first race, but all that to say, it goes back to the early 20th century.
Yeah.
And it super predates established racing in Europe.
But NASCAR is pretty old too, because it grew out of people modifying their cars.
Yeah, stock car racing, but that's the 1930s.
Yeah, it looks like the first race for NASCAR was 49, so it's much younger.
I'm not sure that NASCAR might have a bigger fan base now, but I would say IndyCar has the biggest legacy of all racing.
Yeah, if you think about it, America, car culture in America is very old.
Yeah.
And there is car culture in Europe as well, obviously. and racing. I mean, I think the French pretty early on were racing their cars, and maybe the Italians as well. I mean,
yeah, I think so.
Your famous car manufacturer names like Ferrari and stuff.
Yeah.
And Le Mans, where you have the
24
hour, that's in France. So, yeah, I think there's elements of the racing developed differently across the two continents because they're kind of growing up together at the same time in a way.
Well, it's thing America does, right? We do the same thing with football, right? Every other country in the world has one sport called football, and it's what we call soccer. And then we have real football, American football, which is way better.
Our own version.
So, like, the rest of the world is all like, okay, this is the thing we're going to compete in. And Americans are like, actually, we have a better thing. We're going to compete in that. We'll also compete in your thing. But we're going to compete mostly in our own thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's different. I think America has part of our kind of just individualistic, capitalistic, free market system applies to a lot of different things in sports included. I mean, I don't know of any other country that has the plethora of different types of sports that we do, especially as professionals, but also at the collegiate level. I mean, we've got a ton of sports that people follow, and they exist outside the United States as well, obviously. I think that for whatever reason, I don't understand this. I know we're going off topic slightly, but I don't know why soccer or football, as it's called across the rest of the world, never really took off to the same degree as it did in the rest of the world in the U.S. The U.S. is slowly catching up, but early on, the U.S. actually had some pretty early on, like the 20s and 30s, they had some pretty good soccer teams. But I think
a lot of it is the British Empire. I think that's just I don't know that. I haven't researched it.
That's a fair assessment.
But I think a lot of it is based on the British Empire. So that's just interesting that, like in football, racing has its own kind of, there's the world sport and then there's the American sports.
Yep.
And the Americans ones are better because they're more American.
They are faster. IndyCar is faster than F1.
There you go. So IndyCar, does that race, so if you don't know F1 at all, like in NASCAR, you basically, you turn left 4 times really fast. It's cool, but you're turning left 4 times.
Yeah.
In F1, they have these complicated routes and sharp turns and snakes and, then straightaways and all sorts of, it's a very dynamic looking race when you see it on a map. Does IndyCar do the same thing?
Yes, they have both oval racing and
road
dynamic Grand Prix style racing.
Of course.
And NASCAR actually has a couple of those tracks as well.
Oh, do they?
They do.
See,
but
I
most
no
of
idea.
them are oval.
Most is oval, yeah.
But they do have a couple road races.
That's interesting to know for me, the amateur. But again, I just want to highlight, even for an amateur, who knew, I did know a couple names other than Max Verstappen. Like, now that I read it, I know Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton, who Lewis Hamilton was a producer on this movie. So that's how they got a lot of the accuracy in, because he's one of the greats of all time.
He's the first ever black F1 driver in history.
And he's really good.
And he's really good. 7-time world champion.
Right.
Character Joshua, I think it's not directly, it's not
Joshua
biographical.
Pierce?
Yeah. But I think there's elements of that at play with that character.
That's sort of his maybe he's looking at his younger self.
Yeah, I think to some degree.
So let's get to that. So of course, Brad Pitt goes and races in the F1. He's not going to not do it. He has to answer the call to adventure. He shows up to the team, and Joshua Pierce, who is the lead racer they have, he's
also a rookie.
He's a rookie, and he's apparently quite good, and he's not like a jerk or anything, but he's arrogant and young.
That's absolutely typical of F1 racers. I mean, you have to have, they've got to be some of the cockiest guys in the world, because their confidence has to be sky high for this kind of job.
I mean, you have to be willing to drive, a 2-ton car at, a third of the speed of sound.
Right, and one slight move could mean your death.
Right.
Still.
Right, and the movie makes that very clear.
Yeah.
They're trying all these things out with the car when Brad Pitt shows up, and they're trying, Joshua Pierce is trying different things to gain tenths of a second on the race, finally place in the top 10, and clearly it's just not working. Brad Pitt shows up and immediately wrecks the car.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they keep him anyway.
Yeah. And then walks away just like, you guys need to do better.
Yeah.
Basically like, your car needs to be fixed in these ways, and it wrecked because you didn't design it right.
Right. And for some reason, they're like, you know what? This is our guy.
Well, it's all about the alphas, right?
Yep, it is.
That's what
totally.
you got a bunch of alphas together, and you're trying to basically herd cats in one sense. And I feel like this movie captures that in a lot of ways.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's one of the big dynamics of this movie is can Joshua Pierce and Sonny Hayes learn to work together? There's a moment in like the first, I'd say the first big race is the one where Joshua Pierce is about to win the race. And Sonny has been running interference basically the entire race and doing kind of dirty moves to make sure that no one can get too far ahead and that Joshua can climb up the ladder. And he's finally about to win. And Sonny is basically running the race. He's like, do this, wait, after this turn, then you can overtake. And Joshua, of course, is cocky. And he gets cocky and he gets into a massive accident because he doesn't do what Sonny told him to do. I thought it was a great character moment that Sonny, who we have seen by now, his first big race in the 93 when he got in an accident, and there was no one coming to help him. And as soon as Sonny arrives to the place of Joshua's wreck, he immediately is out of his car and rushing over there, and he's the first one there. And the only thing that keeps him from diving into the car is the heat of the flames.
Yeah. Another technical aspect of this is overviewing the advancements in safety in racing, especially from the 90s on. And you see that because there's footage of Sonny's wreck in 93, and the car has come apart.
Yeah.
And he's laying in the middle of the track. That basically is impossible to happen with the current race frames today. It's especially true. They've, in the past between 2 and 5 years, they included a halo device, which it protects the racers even more.
Is that the thing they insert on top of the driver?
No, that's a Hans device.
That's the Hans device. Yeah. The halo is a physical piece around
connected to the
top.
car.
Oh,
of
yeah.
the cockpit.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah.
Because
so you see basically Joshua, he walks away from this. If he had been Sonny in 93, he'd be dead.
Right.
100% if he had wrecked his car at that level.
Yeah.
Because he goes totally airborne and flies off the track and bursts into flames. His flame retardant suit saves him.
Yeah.
Saves his life. But anyway, that's just a side note of how if you are a race fan and you see this, you'll identify the advancements in safety, which is pretty interesting.
Yeah. And it is, even, like I said, even for the amateur, that was interesting. And I did notice those things. And, these modern F1 cars are like talk about your precision instruments. You can't get much more precise than these. The engineer who's it's her job to make the car, basically, to design the car, to do all the math around the car. And she said, I was sold on this, on the idea of fighting for your life to get a 1/10 of a second on a race. Yeah. And, that is pretty cool that the craft has advanced to that point. Yeah. Where like a 1/10 of a second is the difference between a championship car and a loser. The team is running pretty well, kind of like an well-oiled machine. And then Sonny's over there doing his own thing. So the team's like, we've got plan A, you're going to do hard tires, medium tires, hard tires. And Sonny's like, yeah, that's good for him, but I'm going to do this. And they're like, what? And they're like, we've got plan A and we've got plan B. And he's like, what about plan C? And they're like, there is no plan C. And he's like, yes, there is. I'm going plan C. Be ready.
Yeah. Plan C is whatever I want.
Plan C is plan chaos.
Yeah.
Or plan combat.
The strategy is really evident in this film, and particularly the Pitt strategy, which is used over and over by the team to create these scenarios where it basically slows down the rest of the field. And then, of course, the tire strategy and the fuel strategy. And that was really cool to watch and see that they actually caught all that so correct.
Oh, yeah. Well, see, I didn't know how correct it was, but it was very cool because everyone that you meet in the movie is so focused on, we got to get another 1/10 of a second. We got to just go faster. We got to outrace these other guys. And Sonny Hayes is like, you're not outracing Lewis Hamilton or Max Verstappen. We got to outfight them.
Yeah.
And
basically slow them down.
Slow them down and, beat them on the turns. And he says we got to build our whole strategy around that because they're going to beat us elsewise. So, Joshua gets back, so he has his big wreck. Then he's in the hospital, and there's the emotional drama. And Joshua's mom says to Sonny, if you ever get him in a wreck like that again, I'm going to come kill you. And, standard stuff.
Yeah.
Joshua finally comes back, but he's still got to do rehab, and he's getting kind of venom spat in his ear about Sonny the whole time. And he finally comes back, and he causes Sonny to spin out and lose a race. And then he's racing alone because they're racing as a team. There's 2 drivers on the team racing the same race at all times. And Joshua forces Sonny off the track, and it's just like, okay, is this team ever going to be able to work together? That's kind of the big question here.
Yeah.
One of the elements that was actually very true to F1, I do think that because each team has 2 drivers, so there's 2 cars. And yes, there's a pecking order each team has, but sometimes they get a couple of drivers in there, and they're both really wanting to be the driver, the number 1 driver, and some aren't real excited about having to be told, let the guy pass you. And so I think that element I thought was real true to life in a sense, and interesting in that competitive nature between them. The best racers know how to use that, both of them benefiting from it, the best teams. Mm-hmm. And then there's some really dysfunctional teams where both racers are basically out for themselves, and they don't care if their teammate, ends up, not doing well.
So that is realistic. That's interesting too.
Takes that team manager has to really be able to know what he's doing, make the right calls during the race, understand the situations that are happening and developing during the race, and recognize, okay, the goal is there's the Constructor Cup, which is the team cup at the end. So both drivers' points combined, but then there's the individual drivers' championship. Ideally, you have the best driver and you have the Constructor Cup, but it doesn't always happen.
Yeah. So one question I have for you two who know more about this than I do those little knocking people's fenders off collisions happen that often during races?
No.
Not super often.
No.
Because if you watch this movie, you'd think every driver loses 2 or 3 fenders per race.
Yeah, I mean, you get penalized for that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
so
that was the first thing I was thinking. I was like, there's no way they would let him continue to do this.
No. Yeah, you can be fined like money for that kind of stuff.
Correct me if I'm wrong. There's a scene where Ruben, who's the team owner, is signing checks. Were those fines for Sonny Hayes? That's what I interpreted it was. I wasn't
They
sure.
might have been.
Yeah, I do think there was something about some fines that he had incurred, but I don't remember specifically.
They don't dwell on it.
No.
That's, I think, one of the strengths of this movie is it doesn't dwell on the bureaucratic, here are the pencil pushers trying to get in the way of cool racing. It's like, okay, we'll that's happening. We'll mention it. But what we're going to show you on screen is cool racing because that's what you want to see.
Of course, yeah.
Okay, just to kind of round up the story, of course, eventually the team does work together and they start placing in the top 10 in the races. And then, of course, there's the final race. And, well, before the final race, I guess there's a
Silverstone. Or prior to that one?
Prior to that one, there's a dramatic moment where the league is like, actually, we're going to interfere now, and you have to race with your old crappy car instead of the new one you've rebuilt.
Yeah.
And Sonny crashes out. He gets so mad.
That's a weird little subplot. Well, I won't go into detail just so that people can watch that and see, but it's kind of an interesting little sabotage.
Right.
Espionage.
Well, you got to up the stakes for the final race. You always have to.
Yeah, other teams would object to new designs or technology that a team may come out with is completely in keeping with the sport. Mm-hmm. Somebody comes up with a new fin design or something like that, and if they feel like there's something that it's outside the rules somehow,
they'll contest it.
They'll contest, and so that was kind of interesting too. That was a believable scenario.
Sure.
Watch the movie, find out what happens. Do they win? Who knows?
A little bit less of the spoilers for this one.
Right. Well, I mean, I think it's a great summer movie to go see with the family.
Yeah, it is. Totally.
Go see this one. That's my recommendation.
Fun summer movie. Generally speaking, a Brad Pitt film, you're usually pretty satisfied with the product you get. Mm-hmm. I think. I mean, he's a good actor. He's not super dynamic, but he always comes through, I feel like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think it's Joseph Kosinski and Aaron Kruger. Is that
Aaron
his name?
Kruger, yes.
Yeah. And I think both those guys worked on Top Gun Maverick, which if you enjoyed that movie, I mean, there's a lot of fun, interesting, exciting overlap that definitely delivers in the same way that Top Gun delivered.
Well,
from like just this is a good raw movie.
Oh yeah, it's definitely a good raw movie in the same way as Top Gun Maverick. But the other thing I'd say is even before I realized these two guys were the people who made Top Gun Maverick, I was already thinking the movie this most reminds me of is Top Gun Maverick, even though one is, jets, fighter jets, and one is racing, because the story is actually quite similar. It's the old pro who's really, really good at what he does, coming in and training up the next generation. But then, of course, if you've seen Top Gun Maverick, the old pro still has to show that he can do it better than anybody else.
Yeah.
And that's really what you get in this movie as well. And it's, it's fun. I like it. I don't mind it because it doesn't undercut the new hotshot. He's still the new hotshot. It's just the old pro still has it too.
Yeah.
I do think that the way this is filmed, I mean, it's very evident that they put cameras on those cars and drove those cars. I mean, you're seeing the shots from within the cockpit of the car, or you feel like you're in the car. Mm-hmm. And I think it's done really well in that sense. And you just get a feel for what these drivers must be seeing when they drive these things.
Yeah. And from what I understand, Brad Pitt really drove like legit.
Wow.
From what I was told, apparently he actually learned how to drive these things and was considered to be decently good at it. So
that's pretty cool.
I mean,
I guess they've got those fancy simulators where you can at least learn how to do it without even
that's
in the
true.
car.
There's elements of that in this movie too.
Yeah.
And that is one thing. Of course, the young hotshot is using all the fancy technology, and Brad Pitt is, training by jogging and stuff like that.
Carrying tennis balls.
Right, yeah.
Well, there's all the superstitions that he brings into it, where it seems like it's less of a thing with the younger drivers, but with him, he's got all these superstitions, like different socks and
he will grab a card and like not
from
look
a
at
deck,
it. And then he goes jogging with the crew. It's almost like a Forrest Gump.
Yeah.
Well, see, I thought the jogging made sense because one, it's activity, it's keeping you physically fit, but two, it's getting intimately familiar with the track.
Yeah, I agree.
Yep.
So
so that made perfect sense to me. Let's roll into our scores here instead of belaboring various things, and we can belabor it in our scores instead.
Indeed.
I'll just go first real quick. Woke free meter. I will say after watching this movie, I thought we may have to retire that category.
Depending on what Hollywood keeps putting out.
Right. If they keep putting out this kind of movie, or even 28 years later, we may not need a woke free category.
I don't know.
Anymore.
It might be our best feature, though.
It might be. So, we're not getting rid of it right now, but I'm just saying, if it keeps up this way. Anyhow, my woke free score was 8. And even the 2 points I took off aren't really wokeness. It's just what I'm calling anemic morality, where like the best thing that Sonny Hayes has going for him is he tells his girlfriend in the movie, when I'm out racing and there's a moment where he describes it all poetically, but basically what he's describing is the flow state where his brain is not really engaging. He knows what to do without thinking about it, and he's in the track and he's flying, I think is the term they use. And like he's basically saying, that's what I'm seeking. That's what I'm racing for. That's what I do all of this for, is for that moment of flying. And that's very cool. And it's like, that is definitely a great pleasure, but it's kind of hedonism. It's just like, the neurons in my brain tell me I'm happy. Mm-hmm. There's nothing deeper. There's no more significance to his life. And then there's the aspect of, at the end of the movie, Brad Pitt, despite forming these emotional connections with people, walks away scot-free and doesn't try to build anything, and he doesn't try to even have those human relationships going forward. He's just like, I need to be free, floating in the wind, and I don't know. A little bit lame. It'd be a lot cooler to, pick somebody and settle down and get married, I think, but it's Hollywood.
Yeah.
Well, he's the nomad. I mean, he's just living for the freedom of it.
3 failed marriages.
Yeah, and they give a hint with the love interest that they may continue on into the future when they see each other in the future, whenever that is.
But it's loosey goosey, no strings attached.
It's living for the feels.
Classic secularism.
Well, and not to get on too much of a soapbox, but that's one of the really big problems in America today, is people behaving that way.
I mean, I don't know if that's not uncommon for this type of sport, though.
No, you're right. It's probably realistic.
This is a high adrenaline sport, and I think all sports have it, but I think this is definitely one because you're playing with death potentially. And that's what also gives it you that adrenaline drive. It's kind of like when I think of Alex Honnold, one misstep and dude's dead.
Yeah.
It's hard for them, I think, in some ways, to have like a regular life.
Realism or not, it's still anemic morality. And that's where I took my points off. Again, not terrible. In terms of woke free, I gave it an 8 out of 10. It's like there's no issues about LGBTQ or any of that crap, so don't worry about that.
Yeah. I was similar. I give it a 7. I thought the character of Kate, the love interest, and everything was a bit of a stretch. The truth is, if you want to talk about a sport that has kind of embraced woke in a lot of ways, F1 has. So maybe that's fair to say this is F1 in some ways. There's a lot of elements that F1 would be. I mean, it's a European-based sport.
I gave it a 9, a pretty high score. Really, that's just because what it dictated was indicative of reality.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so whether or not what it was preaching, I guess, is good, you can question that, but it was real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times woke tends to try and elevate what isn't real and to normalize it.
Yeah.
And, make it real. So that's why I scored it so high. I feel like it was pretty authentic.
IQ, how well written was it? I gave it an 8 out of 10. Maybe I could have taken a couple more points off, but I thought this is it's a simple, if it ain't broke, don't fix it story, and it's executed well. So I was happy with it. I really think there's something to be said for finding a story that works and just telling that story. Tell a new version of it, but you just tell the story that works, and you don't have to be subversive or, invert something. You can just tell the story because it's a good story.
Yeah, I gave it a 6. I think this is probably one of its weakest points because it's not super dynamic in its writing. It's not trying to, this is not Shakespeare.
Mm-hmm.
It's very predictable, and in some ways that's satisfying.
Yeah.
There's not going to be, this is not, The Sixth Sense or anything where
I see dead people.
some shock change happens.
And that probably increases rewatch value because you can guess what's going on the whole time you're watching it the first time, watching it again.
Right.
You're not losing anything.
You're watching it basically for the cars.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the truth. Mm-hmm. And the dialogue doesn't detract from it. The story doesn't detract from it. It makes it entertaining and helps it, moves it along at a good pace. I think there were a couple tryhards with like the advice given or different quips that were coming out that just didn't quite land. So it was 6.
Yeah. I gave it an 8. I think it delivers on what it's trying to do for the genre, for the story. I think, it promises I'm going to give you this thing, and it gives you that thing.
Yeah.
I would say that it is definitely a rewatchable kind of movie. Sure, it's not a Shakespeare, but it's not trying to be.
Yeah.
It suspends reality enough that it makes it entertaining, but it also holds to reality enough that it's not ridiculous.
Right.
And I think it really balances that well. And for that, I give it an 8.
Artistic value, I gave it a 7. I mean, visually, there's nothing unappealing. That is something that ranks heavily with me. Is this appealing to look at? I like it to be, pretty. I think all the characters are pretty. Their outfits are nice. They're, pretty. You know what I mean?
Sterling likes pretty.
Pretty cars.
I do. Especially in movies. I don't want to watch ugly things in movies.
That's fair.
Especially for a summer blockbuster, which is definitely what this is trying to do. You just want something fun you can turn on, and it's nice to look at. And I think this does that. There's no exceptional shots. There was no moment where it was like, wow, that's really artistic. But it's nice.
This is the only reason to go see this movie, in my opinion, of all of them. I give this a 9. The art in the way the camera work is done, everything is done to really help and make you feel like you're there, you're in the car, you're seeing just the experience of it in such a way. So I think this is his highest score for sure.
Totally. I give it an 8. I mean, this thing is eye candy. It's a candy for your senses. It is like immersive for sure. Also introduces you to a lot of real tracks, which is cool for the sport. It shows you how the mechanism of how the sport operates, how each one on the pit crew has to do a specific thing, and it shows it in action up close and personal and in the cockpit and above the race track. And yeah, it's awesome.
Entertainment value, I gave this a 9. I would say this is the main reason to go see this. It's a 2 hour and 35 minute movie. So it's pretty long. It still didn't feel long. Some movies are long because they bloat it with manufactured drama and stuff. This movie is long because it gave you more racing. That's fine with me. I have no problem watching more cars going super fast. That was fun. So I thought it was highly entertaining. Like I said, 2.5 hours, and I was not bored at all the entire time. Even the dramatic moments they're moving along. You don't feel like, okay, when is this dressing down going to end? You're like, yeah, this is necessary. Let's see where we're going to go next. And very tight in that sense, even though, like I said, it's 2.5 hour movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I gave it an 8. It is just a fun summer movie, enjoyable. I don't think you'll be disappointed.
Yeah, I also gave it an 8. Totally a great popcorn flick. Didn't feel like 2.5 hours to me.
No.
Never bored, just really enjoyable. Even if you just didn't hardly pay attention, it would be fun to watch.
Yep. Legacy score, I gave this one a 6. I think it'll age fine. I think visually it's going to hold up probably pretty darn well. There's not tons of CGI or anything like that. There's probably CGI for like the car wreck, and that's probably about it. Some of the legacy probably will come from the fact that so much of it is realistic. They're racing against real drivers. Like in the race where Joshua Pierce has his big car accident, he's trying to overtake Max Verstappen. All of these racers, aside from the 2 main characters, are real racers in the F1. That's pretty cool. I think that's going to add to the legacy probably.
Yeah, I gave it a 5. I think it'll be a fun film. It'll be interesting if F1 is seeing this as something of a beginning launch of a franchise. It doesn't have that feel necessarily, but I do think the title is super generic. Is this a marketing campaign to build F1's brand in the U.S.? How successful this movie is, which it has been so far from the box office, it may motivate them to say, hey, let's do another one.
Yeah. I gave it a 6. We're all pretty much on the same wavelength here, I think. In America, especially in the racing movie genre, I think one of the big contenders to have a legacy film is you have to have heritage. And I really think, for example, Ford versus Ferrari, it is a different movie, but it is a superior movie when it comes to legacy, in my opinion, really because you've got that American legacy. This is particular for this market here. So will F1 have the staying power? That's a question mark. Middle of the road, 6.
Yeah, I mean, and to the point of Ford versus Ferrari, there you're dealing with actual history. This is fantasy.
Sure.
Yeah. All right, so our total scores, my total was 7.6. Andrew's was 7.8. Thomas's was 7. That brings our pop culture contrarian average to 7.46. We'll round that up to 7.5. That's one of our highest ever. It's quite good. 3 out of 4 stars total. This is a good movie. Go see it.
Yeah.
I don't think we missed anything.
We probably did, but you can tell us.
Yeah.
Send us an email. We've asked about comments, but especially if you're a subscriber to the Patriot Post, send us an email. Staff at Patriot Post or info at Patriot Post.
Just to be clear, staff at patriotpost.us or info at patriotpost.us.
Yes. Mention that you heard us here on the Pop Culture Contrarian, that you like the show, and tell us what you like about it. We would really love to hear from subscribers, especially to the Patriot Post. Send us an email.
This has been our episode on F1 the Movie. We are the Pop Culture Contrarian, Thomas, Sterling, and Andrew. We're brought to you by the Patriot Post. The Patriot Post is the oldest conservative news digest on the web. Be sure to like and subscribe to that and to our Pop Culture Contrarian on YouTube, Apple Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Hit the bell icon on YouTube so you know when we upload a new video. And like Andrew said, leave us some comments or send us an email. And we'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.
See you guys.